So good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here, and most of all, thanks to our alumni panel for being here. If we can give them a round of applause, and it won't be the first one or the last one of the year. And also, thanks to all of those that are joining us on Zoom. I know we have quite a few people there, and Ms. Sorrentino is going to let us know if they have any questions. But I want to just be able to start first off with our panel. Usually when I have our students introduce themselves in a public setting, I have them not only do their name and so on and so forth, but something unique, silly, sometimes their favorite ice cream topping, or their favorite ice cream, or their favorite pizza topping. But what I'm going to ask you to do is introduce yourself, and I promise I'll prompt you if you forget. Introduce yourself, how long, what years you started at the academy, how long you were at the academy, what you're doing now, maybe where you went after the academy, what you're doing now, and the class that you remember the most. It could have been a lower school class, it could have been a middle school class, it could have been a class that you failed, it could have been a class that you did really well, but that class that you remember the most. So who you are, how long you were at the academy, where you went after the academy, what do you do now, and the Staten Island Academy class you remember the most. Who's sitting closest to me? So you know you're gonna start. All right, let's go.
I graduated Staten Island Academy in 2014. Came to the academy only for high school. Let's see. After Staten Island Academy, I went to the University of Virginia where I studied civil engineering. That's my undergraduate degree. Graduated UVA in 2018. From there, spent some time in Virginia working for a commercial construction firm. So worked to build 2 hotels in the DMV area on a job site full time. So was hard hat, steel toed boots, that kind of deal. Working as a superintendent and both a project engineer. From there, I moved to a consulting firm. My ultimate goal was to gain experience in renewables. So that's where I got that experience, and ultimately where I've landed now. I'm at a solar development firm based out of Boston as our headquarters. We do have an office in New York City. I'm now in Hoboken, New Jersey, building solar facilities in an engineering department, but working as a program and project manager. That's a professional history. What I was saying, set on class. The class I probably remember the most are Mr. Mansky's calculus classes because they were quite rigorous and challenging. Perfect. Andrew.
Hello, I'm Andrew Mayer. I graduated in 2007. I think I got to the academy in 6th grade, if I remember correctly. And this is out of order but I remember you did computer science. I think you were like one of my first teachers, like way back. That's pretty trippy. Yeah. Well, aging you. After I graduated SIA, I went to Boston University. I studied at the School of Theater, so I did the conservatory for acting. When I was here, you have to audition to get into all of those programs. So it's basically like you have to get in academically, same way anybody would, but then on top of that, you have to actually perform live, because Zoom wasn't really even a thing yet. So it was all live and in a room, and I did that for both acting performance and for violin. And at the end of the day, I had to decide which one I wanted to do. I actually got into BU for both. And funny quick story, after I'd gotten all of my college acceptance letters, my mom was going through all of it, and we were like, well, you got all of them except for BU School of Theater. So like I got my Boston University School of Music acceptance, but like what happened? Because I assumed I didn't get in, but then I was like, but they would send you a no, right? So she called the dean up there, and apparently it was abnormal to have someone within the same college get accepted to 2 different programs in college. So because my audition for violin was first, the computer never sent my School of Theater admission. And I ended up going to that school, so kind of, so follow up, I guess, is the moral there, but so, and then from there, I also studied at the London Academy for Musical and Dramatic Arts for Shakespeare and stage combat. And then after that, I kind of just went straight into the scene for performing, acting jobs, musical theater. I did the Great Comet of 1812 on Broadway, so I performed on the Tonys for that, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, and now I'm trying to pivot more into film and TV work. A lot of the industry's changed since COVID. I still love theater and everything, but it's a little different, and I've always kind of gravitated towards film and TV in my brain anyway, so it works out. What else is there? There was the, yeah, favorite class.
I was taking it as my.
Yeah.
Favorite class. James, don't make him mad. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's end that.
Honestly, I love that class. It's very fun, so I'm just gonna leave it at
Leave it at
that.
All right,
Sorry,
James.
Weiss.
Hey, everybody, I'm James Doyle. I graduated in 2004. I am a very proud lifer, Alumni Academy. So after I graduated, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to make a ton of money. Wasn't sure how I did that outside of being a doctor or a lawyer, and in my brain, it was either sell drugs or go work on Wall Street. So I decided to do the latter, and
Thank you.
some people do both. I come from a good family, thank God.
Yes.
So I chose the latter. I went and I studied finance at Rider University. I got my degree in finance. I went to work on Wall Street. I'm not a brainiac. I wasn't a quantitative. I wasn't crunching numbers all day. I was a sales guy. I did institutional sales for 13 years. Absolutely hated it after like my 5th year. Overstayed my welcome. COVID happened in 2020. Kind of made me step back and rethink my life. I was making good money, but I kind of looked inward and asked myself, am I really happy? And the answer was no. So I thought about things that I like to do. And funnily enough, I thought back to my days at the academy, and, I used to love taking pictures. And Martha Moses, who I don't believe is here anymore, she was the art teacher, she's a lovely woman. Used to take photography classes with her here. So I picked up my old camera, kind of fell back in love with that art form, and got back into it. And then I started flying drones. And then I realized that I could monetize that into a business. And frankly, when I was working on Wall Street, I've always been rambunctious. You could ask any faculty member here, I was always getting in trouble. So, I always had a problem with authority. I have ADHD. I didn't know that at the time. I found out later on in life, which makes a lot of sense now. But I never really liked being told what to do. Always had to be my own boss, but I kind of had to go through the ringer to figure that out. So I started a couple of businesses, a few of which didn't work out, but one of which did, which was a photography business. So now I own a company called AGL Visuals. We do real estate and architecture photography. So I work with realtors and architects. I do photo, video, drone floor plans. I'm also going back to school part-time for architecture. I do evening and weekend courses at City Tech in Brooklyn. I absolutely love it. And what led me going back to school at 39 years old was actually this business, because I discovered through going into these homes and photographing these structures for architects is that I'm actually really pretty gifted at figuring out space and rooms and structures. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And, the message of the Academy is that, we're lifelong learners. And I think that that is just so true. So no matter what you do in life, no matter where it takes you, never stop learning. The day that you stop learning is the day that you die. The last thing is that my most favorite class here, that's a tough one, but I'm gonna have to go with Mr. Weissman in the back. I absolutely loved singing. I actually do art as well. I paint and I do street art and pop art. I do commission pieces only. That's not a formalized business, so I only have some high-end collectors that I do art pieces for down in Miami, but I'm trying to make that a business as well. I just don't have the time. And does anybody have ADHD here? Any students? You guys have a gift. You have a gift. It took me 38 years to learn how to use it and harness it. But I promise you that if you learn how to do it, it's an amazing thing. So I'm trying to learn how to do that now. It's still a struggle, but I also paint in my spare time, and anything in the arts I loved. I was kind of scared to admit it at the time. Yeah, it took me kind of a long time to grow into my skin and love who I am, but I think that's the beauty about age is you become really comfortable with who you are. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Allison. I graduated in 2007 with Andrew. I am a lifer, proud lifer. After I graduated, I went to Vassar College. After that, I went into a couple different fields. So I started in journalism when I was here at the academy. I was very into the school newspaper, The Quill. I was the editor. I loved it. So I thought, that's going to be my life plan. I'm going to be a journalist. I worked at New York One for a couple of years, and it was a wonderful experience, but I learned that news was not really my thing. So I went to sort of the flip side of news, which is PR. I worked for the Staten Island Borough President as his Director of Communications and External Affairs, where I handled communications, PR, press relations, government relations, and event planning. And I did that for about 5 years, and I felt it was, again, time for a change. So now I'm at the JCC up the street. I am now the Chief of Communications and Fundraising. So I never thought in my whole life I would be a fundraiser. That was not anything I was ever interested in. But I sort of fell into it. I was doing marketing and communications and helping with fundraising on the side just because I was passionate about the causes. And then apparently I was good at it and they forced me to take it over. So, one of the things, you know, so yeah, if you're good at something, you're gonna end up doing it if you're bad at it. One of the things I primarily fundraise for is Sunrise Day Camp, which actually takes place on the campus here. And I'm happy to say I was instrumental in the move to bring it here. I remember when it was just an idea and I was like, oh, I think that's a great idea. And I helped everybody sort of come together and then people above me made it happen. But I'm glad to be here every summer. So I'm very familiar with this building because Sunrise primarily takes place in this building. And I'll just be so that's something that I love about the academy is that I'm always here and I'm always home. I think because I was a big reader, I love writing. I loved the English classes here. So I never took a bad class here. Everything was great, but I really gravitated towards English and writing, and that's where it took me into journalism and communication.
Perfect. Thanks, Allison.
So I'm John Donati. I'm class of 1990. I'm also a lifer. By the way, don't let the numbers from this side of the table to that side of the table fool you. We're still pretty young and sprightly over here on this side. But yeah, so I liked science here. I like a lot of the different classes here. I got a very good education at the academy. It made me really focused, learned how to study, learn how to be driven, to be motivated and go after what I wanted. I went to Muhlenberg College. I was pre-med. I was also a political science major, so I like diversity. And then, actually when I was I had to take a lot of science classes, and then toward the end of college, I was starting to like, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? So I did start applying to med school, but actually a little bit afterwards. I went to work. I was very fortunate. I worked for 2 years for the Bank of New York, and we went for a lot of interviews. I got a very good job. Surprisingly, the place is still in business today. I don't know. They got me. I did very well. But after working for 2 years, I decided, after stepping away, it showed me what I did actually want to do for the rest of my life. So I applied to medical school. I got in. I went to Ross University. And then after medical school, I did my training at Beth Israel in Manhattan and Long Island College in Brooklyn for pediatrics. And after that, I came back to work, Staten Island. I started one practice for about 2 years, and now I've been with the same practice for almost 20 years. So I've been here for a while. I'm affiliated with all the hospitals here. And just to touch on some of the themes that were noted earlier, I learned early on, basically from the education I got here, how to really be focused, how to go after what you want. But you also have to be willing to adapt. Things are gonna change, right? We see ourselves and we see probably from where you guys are sitting now, you see yourself with a certain picture of what you probably want to do or what you might like. That might change. You may find as you're going through things, the vision of what you saw wasn't right. But it's not the end of the world. You should be willing to always adapt and change. Go after what you want, focus, but be willing to change, because that happens a lot in life. Right, and you'll be successful because you're willing to accept that. People who don't accept that, they may be successful, but may come a little harder, but always be willing. I think with the education you get here, with the exposure you get here, I think everyone here should probably be fine. As far as classes here, I had some interesting classes and some teachers. It's hard to pinpoint one, I guess, probably the public speaking class that I took here probably junior year. It's probably a good one. Probably one of my favorites, just because you get to see a lot of your fellow classmates in ways you probably have never seen before. Probably just leave that at that. But I do have to give a plug. I think Mr. Wally is still teaching here, and his bio classes, I don't know if the laws are still the same, if you're still allowed to have all those animals in the classroom, but you have like everything in there, and that was pretty, okay, we keep it on the down low. I mean, I like little alligators, but his was very enjoyable for the bio, to the AP bio.
Awesome, thank you, John.
I heard that say, I can't believe I'm actually on this stage. You know, I mean, to see you there, I mean, basically, I remember, it sounds kind of cliche, be where you were just, you know, it's like yesterday. But that's not necessarily like a cheat statement. I mean, you realize also, like, time really does go super fast. And so you really need to know kind of where you want to be, I would say, and try to get there. And for myself, I was a lifer here at SIA, and I had got into music originally, got a master's in music, and I was offered a job in China. So I thought I'd go see what China was all about. 2000 or so. I was only going to stay on for a few months, but actually China was so interesting, I stayed on for a few years. But just for various reasons, thought actually I'd always been interested in legal affairs growing up. And so I actually came back to the US for law school. The US, George Washington University for law school. Was doing basically general corporate law, helping companies just do kind of start companies started and set up. But then I thought China was so interesting when I was there in the music field. We go back to China, so I got a job in the law, working in China. And then basically the firm I was in had some entertainment clients, some directors. And they said, Jesse, these two directors had some work in the US. And the lawyer doesn't speak in English, said, hey, you know, I have these two clients, why don't you help them with their US work? Turned out it was like China's like James Cameron and Steven Spielberg. So that was my first entertainment clients. And I stayed in entertainment law. And I came back to the US in 2016. And been helping, we stayed in the film and TV world, but also have now become a producer of certain films in TV as well. But it's kind of easy if you're in that area helping clients with their legal affairs, sometimes you can move into other areas too. And so certain clients said, well, okay, we have a producer who's maybe not doing so well at this. Jesse, you're already the legal on the project. Why don't you help do produce it as well? Like, well, what is producer? So I figured it out, and so I'm doing that as well. So legal and production and classes. I would say when I think back, I guess it's not like one. My grade, I would say, Mrs. Sheridan, first grade, or something just is like a warm feeling. However, hearing James talk about the photography, right? Martha, Mrs. Moses, and I was down in that dark room. I hope is the dark room still here. I hope. I know, but still, yeah, that's coming back. I think I've seen dark rooms, right? Like LPs, records. People actually use them still. Okay, they're coming back. It's like records. Dark room down there all the time. I was the yearbook photographer and editor, and it was a great time. So that's also a great class.
Thank you all. Those are great introductions. I really appreciate that. You know, the students had submitted through Kaylee McDonald, our alumni associate, some great questions, and a lot of you kind of touched on them. So we might feel a little bit of a repeat, but I'm gonna try to find spaces where it's not, one of the things that, I think our students mostly, well, it comes up a lot, is how you deal with all of it, right? The mental health of it all, the stress of it all. Many of you, I mean, all of you have chosen careers that the expectations are high for you to be able to produce, to be able to, no pun intended, to show up, to do the things, to be on top of your game, to be the best at what you are. And I feel that, especially the seniors in the audience, they're feeling that pressure right now, right? Those colleges, decisions are coming back. Some are great, some they wish were different. How do you deal with the pressures in your field? And what have you done personally to manage those pressures to make sure that you're taking care of you, but you're also at the top of your game? And we can go anywhere. I'm not going to pick on Deirdre to go first. That was just for intro. So anyone want to take on the mental health, the idea of taking care of yourself, but still being the best that you can be in what you're doing?
I could start, because, like I mentioned, I have ADHD and my brain is crazy, and I can't stand when people say, oh, I have a little bit of that. Drives me nuts, because if they saw what went on in here, they would lose it, but, it's hard. I mean, the world that we live in is so fast paced, and, mental health is super important, and there's so many, external pressures put on us, especially you guys with colleges and classes and your parents. It's super difficult. For me, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I have to, because I'm a business owner. I don't get security. I don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks. If I'm not hustling, right, and I'm not out there meeting clients, bringing in new business, doing photo shoots, I literally don't eat. So in a weird way, I love that, because it keeps the fire, in my belly, which I kind of thrive in that kind of environment with my neurodivergence, but it's also not for everybody. So for me, I set a boundary for myself every 7 to 10 days, no matter how busy I am, no matter what's going on. If I have, finals with school, if I have a design, for my design class, if I have a major architectural shoot for the biggest architect in New York City in 2 weeks, if I have 10 real estate shoots next week, no matter what it is, if it's within 7 to 10 days, I do something, what I call an outside of the box activity. It's something that I love to do that is not school or work related, whether that is golfing, whether that is going on a drive with my dog, whether that's going to see a friend, something where I just leave everything, shut down, shut the phone off, and just go have fun for a couple hours, half a day, whatever it may be. So I can literally just unplug, rewind, and just be James and just have some fun. And it is so important to do that, because if I don't, I'll literally drive myself crazy. Like literally, I will go insane. So that's just one of the techniques I use. And I have an ADHD coach that literally has sat down and helped me manage my neurodivergence and gave me these techniques to work through these things that I go through. So not everybody has that luxury, and it's taken me a long time to get to this point. But I think it's super important to figure it out for yourself. Take the time to put the books away, to do something that you enjoy, whether that's going to a movie, spending time with friends, sitting down with your family. It's so important, guys, because burnout is real. Like, it really is real. And once you burn out, it is so hard to come out of the hole. You don't want it to happen. So hopefully that helps.
Anyone else want to, I'll just jump off what you said. I think one of the best things about being on the stage right now is that right before I came on, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So I would suggest all of you, if you're living in a very different time than most of us, I think except for you, grew up in, where we have phones, but not the kind of phones that you have. So I would say unplug, turn off the phone, like relax. I think if you're dealing with stress over college, the worst thing you can do is doom scroll. So I would just suggest that you take some time away from it.
I'll add to that as well. As far as pressure, stress. When you're dealing with things, you're gonna have a lot of stress in life, no matter what it is, no matter how simple you try to make your life, no matter how routine, things are gonna come about. That's always the way things are. Depending on what field you pick, there's gonna be different levels of stress. I deal with lives, but you could be the head CEO of a company, you have to deal with others, the stress is everywhere, no matter what career you have. So your focus always has to be, one, whatever you approach and whatever your career is, may change. Take it seriously, do it very well. Try to do it once, try to hit it with everything you have, because that'll give you the confidence of you know what you're doing. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is, when you're actually in a situation where a lot of things are going on around you, always try to find a center and a calm. Because people are gonna look to you no matter what your position is. And if you look all harried or something, for instance, I'm gonna use myself. If you're a doctor and you look like you're going crazy, you don't know what's going on, people are gonna freak out. Right? So, one, partially due to whoever is in this field has to love it because it just takes so much. Your training takes care of the rest, and you constantly be a lifelong learner, like James said. You're constantly learning new things because things change, better technology, things change. So you have to learn, but you have to be confident in what you do. Not overconfident, but confident. And with that, you have to always project, no matter what you're doing and where you are, you have to project a sense of calm, because when people look at you, they have to know, okay, things are gonna be okay. It's no matter what you do, okay? As far as techniques, there are gonna be some times like now, there's a lot of stresses. Take a step back, because a lot of the stress is also from what you hear people say on the phones. There's a lot of things going on. You have to take a step back and say to yourself, okay, these are the colleges I applied to. This looks good. This I'm still waiting on. It's not the end of the world. Wherever you go, you're all good students. You're at the school. You're good students. You're gonna do well as long as you apply. If you go to college and just want to party, that's a different story. But if you have a goal and you go to college and take it seriously, you can have fun, because that's what life's about. You're gonna do well. So you have to take a step back and sometimes disconnect from even the chatter. Rely on your friends, rely on your family, okay? But when things come about, take a step back too. There are techniques that they talk about, unplugging, things like, that's fine. But also too, mentally, take a step back and reassess yourself. You're gonna wind up doing that a lot in life, and that'll help you.
Yeah, a slight pseudo counterpoint, although it's absolutely true, right? You can't always be doing work, but I kind of person, I enjoy the stress. You know, I am unfortunately like it is kind of terrible, whether it's, you know, WhatsApp, Instagram, WeChat. I mean, I work in that field where people are always contacting me. I tend to let them do that, which is terrible. It is. But even so, like, what do I do? So you definitely have some hobbies. Like I cycle. I have, the last few years, I've had a digital keyboard, really nice keyboard in my office. So, you know, I'll stop every now and again, just like play a piece of the piano. I feel a lot better. And even like the work I do. So, well, I don't take vacations, but I do have to go to, let's say, film festivals for work, right? So like Cannes, Berlin, Toronto. So I use that time also while I'm working and take a day or two maybe to actually shoot a little vacation around those work periods. So even though I haven't really got on almost all the time, I still am kind of finding that time too. You know, but I do, but for me, I kind of like that being on kind of thing all the time. So this works for me.
Anyone else want to answer? I mean,
I mean, a lot of what I would say was covered in different ways, so I'm not really gonna repeat. The only thing I might add is, I don't know, it's sort of counterintuitive. So like, I know like everything really matters, and I'm not trying to be like nihilistic or anything, but in the moment that you are going through something, because I'm constantly going through things in real time, that's like my entire, there's no time for analyzing while I'm doing my job at all. But in the moment of what you're going through right now, that transition, that phase, I remember it. Everything matters like 1,000% in terms of like, oh my God, if I don't get into X college or something, like my life is over. That's not true at all. It does matter. It's important to work towards your goals, but progress is, as all the people here seem to attest to, nonlinear. So everything to me, especially when I was in your seats, I was so like linear about how I was going to get to X point. I'm still in pursuit of what I started out doing. And that's just because that's what I choose to do with my time. I could change it in time, and that's valid as well. But even so, even somebody who has had point A to point B, and I haven't diverged really that much, it's still been completely nonlinear, and there have been complete reversals and things that I didn't succeed at. I didn't get the role, I didn't get into the college. And yet, it's not finding silver lining, it's literally, there's an infinite amount of multiverses that you could be in, and you don't even know which one you're going to. So it is going to be okay. And you can take the time to like step back and understand that if you've done the work, you have to do the work. If you've done the work, and you can honestly say that you've done that, it's okay to let go of it a little bit and see what direction the current is flowing, you know, just for yourself. So.
Yeah, I think I just wanna, I really agree with what Andrew was saying. I'll share with you guys, I did not get into the school that I wanted to get into, and at the time, it felt like a disaster. But everything ended up okay. Ended up really liking where I did go. Thank you, Mr. Aquilano, for pushing me in that direction. So I just want to reiterate that, share it if you might be going through it right now. I also just want to message, when it comes to mental health, you know, you never are alone. It can at times feel that way, but I would encourage you to lean on the resources you have available to you, whether that's like mental health counseling, you know, as you guys go to college, that will be pretty readily available to you on your university campuses or college campuses. Don't be afraid to use those resources, and certainly remember to lean on your personal network as well, your family and friends, who will always be rooting for you. It's important to make sure you lean on others when you.
Awesome, thank you. So Deidre, I'm gonna pick on you because the next question was all for you, so that's why I was like, you want to talk to Andrew? So I'm not saying that there aren't stereotypes in anyone else's career here, but I feel that Deirdre is stereotypically in a very male dominant world in construction and engineering. How have you managed that? What's that look like for you? Have there been days that you're like, what did I get myself into? Or, I don't know, challenges. And then if everyone else wants to think about challenges in their career that they're really working through, but I was gonna start with you on that.
Yeah, it's certainly true. Engineering and the work that I've been in is certainly a male-dominated space. I've had different challenges with that, especially in a job site culture, where I was often interfacing not only with primarily men, but also men that were significantly older than me and may have had different experiences. I think my first piece of advice is to let the work speak for itself. When you act professionally, you take the time to understand your position and what you have to offer, people will start to trust you. I think trust is a big thing when building relationships in that environment. So certainly let the work speak for itself. And kind of similar to what I offered for like mental health advice, there are situations where you need others to step in and assist. And so I think, you know, in a professional environment, sometimes that does require bringing in human resources as needed. I would also offer, like, if you are in a difficult situation, like the strength of documenting situations and presenting it professionally to advocate for yourself. Certainly you don't want to go into an environment where you're feeling undervalued or underappreciated. So making sure you're both, you know, letting the work speak for itself, and then also leaning on others for support as needed. Maybe another thing to offer as well is finding and keeping mentors. For me in my career, having female mentors to look up to has been huge. You know, maybe before bringing in a more escalatory situation with HR, for example, you might be able to lean on a mentor to say, hey, in a more casual way, I'm really dealing with a difficult situation. What's your advice? What can you offer to me? How would you handle this situation? In my career, I've learned leaning on folks with more experience than you is often extremely beneficial. So make sure you identify those resources, gain those mentors, and I think, yeah, it make a big difference.
I think my career path of choice is like endlessly challenging. And we used to joke about it, but I actually realize this now, like, I got a degree in fine arts, so I got a bachelor's in fine arts in acting performance, like, what is that? Right, like, but actually, what I learned, that applies outside of acting, because I do other things as well, that's just my main thing, is that I got a bachelor's of human communication. Actually, surprisingly, in corporate America and the world at large, and I think even more so now with Zoom, people lack basic communication skills in real time to be able to talk to another person, make eye contact, be present with another person. It seems like it's so basic, but it's so frightening to so many people, and it makes sense why it is, because you're vulnerable in a way when you do that. So what I'm getting to with this is the challenges that I've faced in collaborating with other people or communicating with other people in different ways, not just acting, but all sorts of different projects, even some temp work I've done for random companies, is that the worst kind of collaboration, the worst kind of team, to me, is the team where every person or a bunch of the people bring their egos into the picture. And I think that the best kind of team, the best kind of collaboration is when you leave your ego at the door. That doesn't mean leave your knowledge, your point of view, but making it be about the work, because everybody has their own experiences. I've been in a position where, like, I'm supervising people who are twice my age with twice the experience. The reason I'm there is clear, it's understood. But to negate that person's entire experience, their entire existence, their entire, world that they've lived as well, would be wrong, and that would be something of my ego, So that would make it challenging to work in that environment, and I've seen people struggle with that sort of thing. They bring their ego in the scene because they've got something to prove. Everybody does it at some point, you learn. But I guess I would just offer that trying to leave that part of yourself at the door when you're collaborating and communicating with other people will yield a better working environment, no matter what profession you're in. I think I would hope that all of them would agree with me up here that that's important.
What kinds of internships, extracurricular activities, you might have done either while you were in high school, after high school, while you were in college, or while you were figuring it out? Some of the questions were, had you ever delineated from the original past? So you all kind of went in that area. So were there extracurriculars or internships that you really felt helped solidify where you are today, or the direction to change, right? We've had the experience, and I know that for many of us here as educators, the child wants to be the engineer, takes the summer program in engineering, goes, oh my God, that's not what I want to do, right? So was there that internship or that extracurricular that really helped push you in one direction or another?
I actually did several internships when I was in the news field. Right after I graduated, it's probably like 2 days after I graduated, I started interning for the Staten Island Advance. That was really great as a foot in the door. They were a little bit more robust back then, so they had an office. I could say that my boyfriend was. But it was a great way to start. And then I ended up during college interning at Dateline, which was totally different from our hometown paper to a national news program. And then right after that, I got an internship at New York One, which ended up becoming a job. So I would always say, even if it's unpaid, when there's a very small stipend, go for the internship, because it could possibly turn into a job, or you can meet people there that could connect you to another job. Or you could say, you know what, I actually hate doing this and I don't want to devote my life to it. So it's a good way to learn. And
I also did a lot of volunteer work when we were in high school. They used to have an organization, I don't know if it still exists, it was called SOS, it was a service organization. You still have something like that here?
Similar, but not
Similar,
SOS.
okay, yeah, and then
You
the
just go
numbers,
back of memory.
the numbers, they keep bringing me back. So that, I used to like doing a lot of different work. We used to volunteer out to a lot of different places. It wasn't one specific thing. And I noticed a lot of times when we'd go to various places, like the Alice Austin House, we go to maybe an old age home, we do something like that. And I noticed working a lot with people just in general was showing my gravitation where I want to do, and especially later on, in college, I worked at a lot of like elderly homes, things like that. I volunteered a lot of time, some charities, some cancer walks, things like that, pediatric. Back before they had a lot of the walks with, the pink ribbon and all that. And not only, I guess you can say it's good for your resume, but I think it helps solidify, because you're seeing a lot of different avenues of different areas, different people's lives from all over, things that affect them, health, other things. So I think that's good also to expand yourself, just to make you a complete person. Not to sound, like I'm lecturing you on page your resume, not at all. I think by doing your academics, but also doing other things, you are a complete person, because you meet other people. It's fulfilling in a lot of ways. Everybody is a little different. But I noticed a lot of those times, especially the volunteering at like the old age homes, things like that, I knew I kind of wanted to go toward the medicine route. I mean, that may be different for everyone, but I think that also fulfills you as well. I think that's a very important thing.
My first career with finance, I actually got my first internship through the academy. I met Vinnie Dugan at the alumni event at Bayard's. Vinnie's a great guy. I haven't talked to him really long time, but he had me come work for him at his firm. He's a CFO at the trading firm, which I don't even know if it's still around. Probably not, but great guy. I worked for him for a summer, and that kind of got my foot in the door. Obviously, I left that industry. But point is that, you should never be afraid to go and shake hands, and meet people. The most important conversation that you will ever have in your entire life is the one that goes on between your ears, right? So don't ever self-reject. Sometimes I still do it. Oh, should I go introduce myself to that person? Don't, no, go shake their hand, send that email, say hello. The worst thing they say is not interested, before they walk away. They're not gonna do that, but don't self-reject yourself, because all it takes is one relationship, one door opening that could literally change your life. So. Thank you.
Where was he in my youth?
Sorry. Any challenges? Definitely one.
No.
Okay, I can make it.
I'm learning so much here.
Alright. I was ready to challenge.
Now the young person.
So I have this list of questions, but what I'd love to do is take a little time to let live questions happen. Is anything happening? Anyone on Zoom have any questions? And anyone in the room have any questions they want to ask? I'll call on you. Yes, Meenakshi. So Meenakshi, introduce yourself, what grade you're in, when you started at the academy, and your favorite ice cream flavor. Sorry, no, go ahead, just ask your question.
Yeah.
Get all that in. Yeah. You know what, I can.
Maybe what,
Mr. Weissman's worst nightmare was giving me a portable mic. Because now I'm an eighth grade boy. Meenakshi, I'm gonna ask you.
Since I have a bit of a background in law, corporate law, which is like kind of big law, is there anything?
not that big. Big laws, like I'm working at a large law firm, right?
Yeah. Is there anything about law of a career path that we should know before like entering, or like, anything that's like misunderstood about being in a law firm, like being in that career?
I mean, that's a pretty wide ranging question. I mean, first off, basically, there's two kinds of lawyers for the most part, like, you're the litigators for the folks in court, right? And you're kind of contract deal lawyers like me, right? Everyone's trying to make deals go forward. So those are two very different kinds of lawyers, two very different kinds of people for the most part. These guys in court, you're very aggressive, oftentimes. And contract lawyers, much nicer. Yeah, but so there's that. And of course, then there's also, as you say, big law, which actually did have the opportunity, although in China, I was much more entrepreneurial. I was allowed to kind of just be on my own and try to do business on my own. I really liked that. So when I came back to the US and I was working at a large law firm, they said, well, no, you be in the cubicle, get, bill your 2,000 hours a year, which is possible. And that's a real problem. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to just like sit there and just like grind all day long, then maybe big law is not for you. But a lot of people in law school tend to think, oh, we want to get to that, those the white shoe law firms. But then they get in and they realize, gosh, all this is work and grinding all day long. And so maybe that kind of big law work is not for them. Maybe they want to work with like a smaller law firm. Or even a solo, or even to start even on their own. I mean, starting at a law school right on your own might be challenging, but these days you can basically do it. You learn a lot on your own, and now of course there's AI as well that helps out. So, yeah, hopefully that answers a little bit. I have to talk more, also be more specifics on that, but yeah.
So it's not all like suits?
Sorry. So, excuse me. You were saying. You gotta look the part, you gotta be serious or.
No, I haven't seen the
So that's
TV
why it
show.
looks to be crazy to come out office.
Have you seen the TV show Suits
Huh?
about a law firm? Forget it. Does anyone else know about it? It's a great show.
So
It makes me want to be a lawyer.
But it is, certain firms are very much like that. No question about it.
Oh, it looks so fictional. All right. Any other questions from the audience? And you let me know, Susan, if there's anything over there. Any other questions? And, all right. Can we pass the thing? Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a junior and my name is Jackie. I was really interested in finance and I don't know, I feel like I've heard a lot of stories like similar to yours where people like hate the work culture after working there for a certain time and then they start to like think about quitting and eventually they do quit. But I feel like I'm really worried about that because I don't want to dedicate so much of my college life or my life in general to studying something that eventually I ultimately won't like or eventually might quit in. I find your story really inspiring because you're able to put something down that you worked so much of your life for to work towards a more personal and entrepreneurial thing, and ultimately you were successful. And I find that really inspiring. But what do you think? How were you able to put that down? And what made you realize that you didn't want to work in that field anymore? And do you find any common trends between people who do quit it?
Yeah, no, great question. And to be completely candid, it was not easy, right? It's not an easy decision at all. And, look, I was making really good money. It wasn't millions of dollars, but I was living very, very comfortably, right? And to leave that and to live a life where I don't have a paycheck and I don't have that security or comfort, people would say I'm crazy. But you know what? A pretty good indicator was when I wake up and I felt like I had a ball and chain behind me. Literally, I was miserable, literally miserable. So what I would say is if you have an interest in finance, I would pursue what interests you now and don't worry or think too far in the future. What I tell people is that, we're not trees, right? If you decide you don't like it one day, you can change, you can move, right? I'm 39 and I'm pursuing an architecture degree. And guess what? I was a terrible student when I went here. I was not good at all. I couldn't sit still. I barely passed the SAT. Now I have a 3.6 GPA. I love school. I love it. There's a guy in my class, he's a little further. He's in design 4. I'm only in design 2, but he's 50 and he's doing it. I'm 39, so it's never too late to pursue your passions. So I would say, and I got so much out of that field. I got a ton out of it. I spent 13 years in it. It made me strong. It made me a salesman. It gave me a backbone. It gave me the ability to walk into a room and talk to anybody. I can approach anybody, have a conversation with them. I don't care who it is, how high above me they are. And you know what? I'm light years ahead of anybody in the architectural field because of that. And when I get the architectural degree, I'm going to have firms chasing me because I have a finance background. I'm a sales guy. I'm going to have the architect degree. I'm an architectural photographer, and I'm going to turn them all down. I'm going to do their architectural photography for them. So I would say, follow your passion now. If you're interested in it, do it. If you don't like it, extract what you can from it, and you'll figure it out. you can always audible, and it's never too late to change direction. You'll get a lot of experience out of what you do. You may not be able to see it now, but I promise you, it all comes together. So hopefully that helps.
Thanks, James. And Hideki, I appreciate your question too, because I think what I'm hearing from you, James, is that it wasn't a waste. Even though you did this thing that you left behind, even though you did this thing that you pivoted completely a 180, you didn't feel like you wasted the 13, 15
Absolutely.
years of studying that. You took that and moved it
Got
in a
it thought
different
out.
direction.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that. Thanks. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Aaron. This question's for James. As a student with myself with learning disabilities, and you yourself now know that you have when you went back to school, how do you find studying for things like architecture or like really motivating yourself to keep going, keep doing work, keep learning?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Honestly, I'll get a little personal. You know, and I think the best, well, I won't say men, I'll say people. Best people are the people who struggle in life. The people who have been knocked down, that get up, the people who've lost all their money, that have come from the ashes, the people who've lost their parents. You know, I've lost my parents and they were very heavily involved in the academy. That's why I'm here now. I know it's what my mother would have wanted. So I live for them every day. I want to make them proud. And I don't chase money. I mean, look, I'm a business guy. Money's important, right? But I chase excellence. I chase creative and artistic excellence every day. That's what gets me out of bed. And I have this neurodivergence and I've accepted it. When I was your age, I didn't even know I had it when I was your age. They didn't know 20 plus years ago what they know about it now, right? I found out later on in life, and thinking back, it's like, wow, it makes sense why I was that way back then, right? So it's a challenge sometimes still. But like I said, I have an ADHD coach who helps me manage this stuff. He gives me tricks and tools to work through it, which I'm happy to share with you after. But it's tough. But I lived my early life when I was your age, through my 20s, being what I thought everyone else wanted me to be. But now that I've aged and I've matured, I'm being me and I'm doing what I really want to do and following my passion. And that's the beauty about getting older. You care less about what people think, you live for you. So, you know, like you'll probably notice, I have my sketchbooks and my little notebooks, and I live by my notebook. If I don't write it down in this, it doesn't exist. So, you know, it's hard, but I manage. I write everything down. I have a routine. I follow it. It's tough, but I get through, and it all comes down to doing what I really love. I'm going back to school for something I'm genuinely interested in. I genuinely want to be doing, and that makes the world of difference. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of color, but I'm happy to talk after and share my blueprint more. Sure.
This is a bit of a different take on the question that wasn't for me, but just something to add made me think of this. Like, I think one of the more valuable things I think about often, I'm like, okay, so I went into a performing arts career and I went to a prep school and I took calculus. Like, I got a 5 on my BC. Like what is that useful to me as far as like how I move forward? And there's a million answers to that, but the most general thing that James' answer made me think of was it was important to learn how I learned. Like, how do I learn? How I learn is different than how James learns, is different than how you learn. And not just like the act of getting the A on the test, because that was like the most important thing. And I didn't realize this till now, this is 2020 hindsight, but like, how do I learn? How do I learn applies to whether it's architecture or whether it's learning a line or whether it's learning a piece of music. Have sense, and that changes based on whatever you're doing. Having some sort of sense of what works for you is probably the most important thing that I've taken from an education like I had here, in general, and I can apply it infinitely. So that could be the way I schedule things, tricks I have for what I do, productivity, just the way that I process information. So if you find that for yourself, And, obviously mental health plays into that, but for anybody, that to me, I mean, of course, A is important, whatever grade you get is important, the college is important. But understanding how you as an individual process the world and learn will make you so much more efficient at everything you do. So.
I'm a senior at BC College in State. And my question is if anyone could talk about AI, if you use it in your jobs, and maybe some guidance for some, high schoolers on how to use it.
Don't use it to hand it an English paper.
I use it all the time. I was actually just talking to some friends about this over the weekend. I would say I probably use it once an hour, if I had to guess, at my job. I work in a pretty corporate environment, so a lot of my job is communicating via email with external stakeholders. My company has a couple of GPTs that they've created for us, and what this looks like is essentially it's a fancy database, right? So there's information we need at our fingertips on a daily basis that, could be easy to forget. We work with a lot of different utilities that have different requirements, and these GPTs are built essentially to return data based on information that we acquired over time of like how utilities handle information. So I think one piece is, depending on your environment, you might have AI that has like a guardrail around it, that GPT that's built by someone at my company, right, who's an informed subject matter expert. I can very much rely on that information to provide, or that tool to provide very reliable information. So that's like one version of it. Another version is I use ChatGPT frequently to help me rephrase thoughts or ideas. Again, just to emphasize, I wouldn't use it to necessarily return like a paper or something of the like. I think in a school environment, you have to be a little bit careful of that. But in my job, I definitely use it. I'll jot down a bunch of ideas and say, I'm facing this issue. I really want to communicate that I might be disappointed in this external stakeholder, but I don't want to appear angry. How can I say this in a professional way that shows them I'm serious, gets across my point, but isn't too harsh? That's something I struggle with. A lot of my correspondence can be curt and to the point, which probably you guys know my mother is like yeah. So I've got feedback at work that I need to work on that. So ChatGPT is a tool I use to improve that. I think just generally, I think you guys probably are hearing this and learning this. Anything you put into ChatGPT definitely needs to be reread and kind of validated. It's only as good as its prompts, right? So there is an element of like trial and error, learning how it operates. I think learning how to write a good prompt is probably something that will be discussed for years to come. How do we leverage this tool better and better every day? So there's an aspect of trial and error. Like I would encourage you to get in there and try to use it to maybe answer some questions you might have that you might typically put into Google, see how that works for you, or see how you learn from it. But certainly it can be very, very valuable, and I think in a corporate environment, very beneficial. It's a big time saver for me right now. So I use it a lot.
I'm the opposite from a communication standpoint. I'm always being told that AI is gonna take my job, but I haven't seen evidence of that yet because every time I put something into ChatGPT, it comes out with garbage. So I do use it occasionally for jumping off points. If I have to write, say, a speech for my boss or a board member, I'll use it sort of to, if I can't think of a way to start to get into it, I'll put a prompt in and then I'll take pieces from it and sort of make it human. But I just find that a lot of the work I do is very specific. So it's just things that ChatGPT wouldn't know. Like I have to write a speech about my boss's, childhood and how she got to be the CEO of our nonprofit. there's no way, even if they took a bio of her, they're just not gonna get that human piece. And I say they, it's a machine. But I just really haven't found that it's super helpful. I'm waiting for it to get to the point where it would really help me more. I do have colleagues in my communications department who, if they knew I used it, they would be furious. Our director of marketing, who works directly under me, she told her, the whole staff, like, absolutely not, and I tell everyone, do not tell her if you use. So, I'm hoping that, eventually it will be a little bit more helpful in a communications standpoint. I do think it's helpful for like writing basic emails if you're not sure how to word something. But I definitely would not use it for anything specific, like a paper for a class. You have to write that yourself. I do think, it may be helpful with like outlining words before you write them.
Yeah, I think, just to jump off what Allison's saying, I do think it's important to be conscious of the environment in which you're leveraging an AI tool. The company I'm working for is very AI forward. They've invested a lot of time and money into developing GPTs with ChatGPT platform. Other firms I've worked for before, I think might react similarly to some of the folks Allison's working with, where AI might not be as welcome. So I think that's important to keep in mind and be like a responsible steward of the technology that's available to us.
Just to quickly piggyback off what Alice said, there's a lot of talk about AI, it's gonna overtake people's jobs and put everyone out of business, blah, 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 utter balderdash. It's not gonna take anyone's job, that's ridiculous. They said it's gonna, put me out of business as a photographer, nonsense. It's gonna take architects' jobs away, no, it's not. You're never gonna be able to replace the human element, in my opinion, so that's all I'll say about that.
However. I mean, this is a huge topic, obviously, for the hours, days, there's no question about it. And I think there's a legitimate concern. I mean, every generation has this kind of, that comes up, and here we have AI. And I've been using it now since about a half a year now. You can into the Copilot or ChatGPT, you can add documents, even upload documents, and then ask it to use these documents and make changes on it and write a comment, revise documents. So, I mean, for me, looking at the trajectory of this last year or two, like, okay, we're at the beginning, terrible little contract would draft up, 6 months ago, still not very good. Now I can ask you to say, look at this document or so, write up I'll tell it very specifically, here's the two parties, here's the things, here's what I need, here's basically the terms, write up, a detailed contract, and it actually, it's not so bad. Now, at that trajectory, when would it replace me? I would say it could be like 7 to 10 years. Okay. However, so, but what does it mean? What does it mean for you? That's okay for me. That's still pretty young, right? Now, well, you, what does that mean? I'm not sure. But it probably means really knowing what you're doing well, that you can use AI as a tool, as opposed to you being a tool, right? So that's really the point, and leveraging it so that it will work for you. So now, I mean, maybe I exaggerate, go ahead, hyperbole a little, like take over what I'm doing. Obviously, hopefully I and the people like me will stay ahead of that curve and always be using it, to do better, right? I mean, that's of course the idea. That's why big law all has, they've invested in all lawyers are using AI right now, for sure. I mean, I know that for a fact. So yeah, it's used to be more efficient. We just have to be careful because it's going to be going. Still, there's a whole lot of it's just basically begun. So there's a lot more to do, and it'll be a lot more advanced soon. So there's knowing what you're doing, being competent, having expertise, and being able to use it to better yourselves is really going to be the key.
Thank you. I know we had another hand somewhere. Let's go. Yeah.
Rami, thank you guys all for taking the time. First question for Dr. John. I'm interested in medicine a lot, but how did you get your foot in the door and start getting internships and shadow opportunities? What programs did you do that you'd recommend to go?
Okay, so that's a great question. So when you're in high school, I always recommend always doing well. We're giving you a perspective from later years, general broad perspectives. But at this stage, you still have to be very specific and focused, okay? I keep coming back to those words because they're very important for you. Okay, we're giving you like broad ideas from later on. Right now, at your stage of life, you have to be focused and you have to do well. No matter what you do, you have to attack it. As far as high school, in addition to doing well, you do service, you do other things that are offered. I know internships are offered, right? So that's where you can start. The big one is when you're in college. So when you're in college, if you're interested in medicine, you have a certain track you have to do. You have to pick a major. Pre-med is separate from your major. Some of the courses may interweave, but most of you, it's almost like doing two majors, okay? So right then and there, you have to be focused to make sure you do well. Your colleges, no matter where you go, usually have a department or overall for the school, but usually your department, biology, chemistry, they'll have internships for you that you can do either your first year, your second semester, your second year, your third year. Pretty broad. I've noticed that from a lot of schools. So they comprise a lot of different things, from volunteer to shadowing a physician, to shadowing a physician in a hospital, to following a surgical team, to following outpatient doctors, dermatology. So those things are going to be available to you in college. So if you're serious about medicine, you not only have to pay attention to your tracks and what you're going to do, because everyone has to do the pre-med requirements. It's still about the same. You'll have to pick a major that you like. It doesn't always have to be science. I was political science, right? I also did a lot of history classes because that's what I liked. Just do it well. You approach the biological department or the career services department, and they usually offer these things. They'll tell you, well, maybe you can't do your first year, but you can do your second. They have a broad range. So what I would recommend is, you may not know what type of medicine you want yet, but do different things. It doesn't tie you down. It's a day, it's maybe 3 days, it's maybe a week, maybe it's a weekend. That's how you're gonna get your foot in the door, and that's how you're gonna get to know people. Why is that important? Being sociable was talked about quite a few times, right? You need to communicate and you need to be friendly. Everyone's personality is different. You don't have to be so outgoing, but you need to make eye contact. You need to speak clearly and intelligently. You go to Alumni Academy, you should speak clearly and intelligently, okay? You carry that with you to college, stop laughing.
You're right.
You carry that with you to college, right? You're going into medicine, you'll be educated, no matter what you do, okay? When you go to these internships, you'll meet people and you're gonna be surprised how things come around. You'll follow this doctor. Maybe later on, when you're applying to schools, that doctor sits on the board at one of the colleges, or he helps on the admissions committee. You make a lot of connections. You do, so you have to say, I am such and such from this school, it's nice to meet you. They're busy people, they may be nice, some people may not be so nice. But you have to introduce yourself, you have to be out there. So those in college is an important time to do that, and they're usually available through the colleges. So you can inquire when you're looking at colleges, not only about their programs to pre-med, but what do they do for internships and things like that, okay? Very important. You'll be surprised how meeting people, communicating well, you leave an impression and how that can come back. I talked about earlier, after college, I wasn't sure I went into finance. I had met somebody when I was volunteering at a home. There was a bigwig at the Bank of New York. He remembered me when I went into interview. I got a really good job. I got paid really. In fact, when I decided to leave, because I was doing well, he called me up. He said, "Really, you sure you want to do this? You do it." I had decided, but that got me that job. So I was 22 years old out of college, and I got a job in a tree. I did well. A lot of times they say, who you know, you have to be able to do it. You got to be smart. You got to pay attention. You got to be able to carry your weight no matter what you do in life. You got to carry your weight, because if you just get into a connection and you can't carry your weight, you're out. It doesn't matter who you know. But opening the door sometimes is a little bit of a help. Okay. And then when you're applying to medical school from college, these people may come around again. So those internships are very important.
John, sorry.
And I think that's what AI can't do, right?
Right,
You
so,
know, making that eye contact,
Yeah.
being in this space,
that's right.
being confident, knowing your stuff, right, being able to do it, yes, and then using the tool that's given to you in your workplace, whether or not your workplace allows you, we won't tell anybody else, and then maybe sometimes you dabble in it.
She was for me.
Fair, fair. So I mean, that's where, you know, the human side of things, we still have to be able to have a voice. We still have to be able to put ourselves out there and be able to communicate. And sure, the tools, you know, you didn't have these tools, I didn't have these
Right.
tools. They're going to help and they're going to streamline things and save some time, but they can't take that away. I know we only have a few more minutes. I will put you on the spot because you did say, you know, meeting people. I would assume that all 6 of you would be happy to share information, contact information with any student in the audience who's interested and maybe shoot you an email once in a while, obviously not badgering them, but maybe come and visiting you at work to see what that looks like, what that feels like, because that's the best way to get those experiences. So let's try for maybe one more question and then we'll allow for individual conversation for a few minutes before everyone has to go. So anyone, yes.
I'm Ava, I'm in grade 10, and this is just a question for whoever. When you're a student and you're in an environment where there are so many different opportunities available to you and so many different extracurriculars and things just being thrown at you, how are you able to distinguish between what is a possible or a potential career path and between what is a hobby? And if you are a student that say is interested in certain fields that are at totally opposite ends of the spectrum, for example, like fields more humanities oriented versus fields that are more science oriented, how are you able to navigate between what you want or just what might be a little bit of an interest? And are there certain fields where it has to be like, you need to be really focused on just this and you have to really know that that is what you 100% want to do? That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what you're the most passionate about, because if you look at what I do for a living, I'm a photographer, right? And that could go either way, that could be a hobby. I mean, a lot of people just do it as a hobby, but I turned it into a budding career. You know, so I think just gravitate towards whatever you're the most passionate about. And yeah, you guys are lucky because literally if you have a computer and an internet connection, you can find ways to make money. There are ways that you can make businesses. You can literally make a business out of anything these days. If you have the drive and the entrepreneurial spirit, you can make money. There are ways to make money. So, yeah, I mean, I would just follow your heart, follow your passion, and just let that guide you. Hopefully that gives you some color.
Can I make it simple for you? You're in high school. There's a lot of things out there. Now's the time to try different things. Try it. For a day, a couple of days, and try different things. If you're an organized person and you want to keep a list, I like this, I don't like this. Try it and see if you like it. Now's the time. You have time to make your life decisions. Put a lot of pressure on you, they expect a lot of you, and you should. You're building your future. Take a step back. Try different things and see what you like. Because as you get older, things are gonna change too. Your likes may change. See what you like.
So I'll ask all of you for 30 seconds or less.
You're leaving advice to the younger and some of us older people before you leave the stage. What's that little piece of advice? What would that be? There's so many things you've dropped, but what would be that last bit of advice to the group?
Never give up, no matter what. Never give up. Use it as a motto. Never, ever give up, no matter how bad things are, no matter how tough things get. If you want something, never give up.
When you come across an opportunity that you may think, I'm not sure about it, give it a shot, because my motto in life is I say yes to everything, good or bad. But I've learned a lot from the things I said yes to and trying different opportunities, things outside of the box or outside of what I thought my wheelhouse was, and some of them ended up really leading me on my career path.
Mine is twofold, always believe in yourself, no matter what. And always celebrate your birthday. Always look forward to your birthday. As we get older, people are like, oh, I'm getting old. What's the alternative? You're dead, you're not here. That sucks.
We have a birthday in the house. Should we sing to her? No.
Yes.
It should be mortified, but we'll just say happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It's Chloe Becker's birthday.
Happy birthday.
You said you're happy to celebrate her. Child, you spent her birthday here with all.
That's dedication, that's awesome. Happy birthday.
I mean, there's a lot of different things. I think a lot of what we said is important, but I don't, I think, the more complete person you are, just in general, doesn't matter what career path you're in, the more experience you have, the more hobbies you've done, the more things you tried, the better perspective you're going to bring to any given thing that you choose to do with your life. So the time isn't wasted as long as you're really immersing yourself and paying attention. That doesn't mean studying, paying attention. That just means like actually paying attention and not just going through experiences mindlessly. So do things mindfully, and whatever it is, it'll still add up to something that'll be worthwhile.
Yes. I think I would say, don't be afraid to quote unquote fail. I think a lot of us here probably felt that we found success through trial and error. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to start new things. And yeah, always keep your why at the center of what you're doing, which is allowed to change over time. Your why right now might be to get into a good college, to get a good job, but that might change, why might eventually be like building a business or, providing for your family. So remain flexible and, yeah, keep trying.
And not to be a contrary.
I
at
love it.
all,
I knew you
at
were gonna
all.
bring us there.
But everyone, this is just like, everyone should be trying lots of different things, there's no question about that. And also, I think almost all of us at this stage, no one's done like a straight line to something, and yet, one should still keep in mind, expertise, competence, this is so important, it really isn't like that much time. And so while, sure, you have to experience different things, I would still keep in the back of your mind and try to know, and it's cliche, like know yourself, really think about what you really love and what you want to do. And once you sort of do have that sense of what it is, you should go for it. Because I mean, again, well, it's probably not going to be, exactly what you want when you're 10 in high school, you study it, college, you get the major, you get a master's in it, you get the job, and great, and you buy a yacht. Probably not like that, but actually that's, you need to focus, I would say, because at the end of the day, if you don't know what you're looking for, you'll never find it. So, I would say, really, to try and figure out who you are as soon as you can, but still learn things as you experience different things as you go. To save especially.
Thank you. That was wonderful. We give our alum. Thank you. This is a very special place. I am in my 30th year here at Staten Island Academy, and you remind me, as they do each and every day, what this place does and what this place means, and reaffirm, found my passion here and have been here since, and I love it. And you reaffirm that for me with each thing that you shared with us today. So I thank you. The one thing that won't change is I'm gonna need to take a photo with all of these people. And then once we've taken the photo, I'll release them into the space and I'll ask you to stop playing with the new seat. Not afraid to call you out. Thank you all. You can sit tight and hang and talk to someone for a few minutes after, or you can head back home and get warm on this freezing cold evening. I thank you all for being here.